Department of Justice has a duty to enforce our nation's laws, including our immigration laws. Unfortunately, some states and cities have adopted policies designed to frustrate this enforcement of immigration laws. In a single week, there were more than 200 instances of jurisdictions refusing to honor ICE detainer requests with respect to individuals charged or convicted of a serious crime. The charges and convictions against these aliens include drug trafficking, hit and run, rape, sex offenses against a child, and even murder. When cities and states refuse to help enforce immigration laws, our nation is less safe. This guidance requires state and local jurisdictions to comply and certify compliance with Section 1373 in order to be eligible for OJP grants. I strongly urge our nation's states and cities and counties to consider carefully the harm they are doing to their citizens by refusing to enforce our immigration laws and to rethink these policies. Well, you know, Maryland is talking about a state law to make the state a sanctuary state. The governor is opposed to that, I'm glad to hear. That would be such a mistake. Essentially, the policies of the Obama administration that were issued last July make clear that you should not be receiving certain federal funds if you're not in compliance with 1373.
The president also will announce the establishment of the Office of American Innovation. The Office of American Innovation will apply the president's ahead of schedule and under budget mentality to a wide number of government operations and service, enhancing the quality of life for all Americans. The effort will be led by Assistant to the President and Senior Advisor Jared Kushner. One of the things that Jared's looking at is some of the procurement, the technology aspects. And if you've ever really dealt with the government and recognized how outdated and unmodernized some of this is, it is not serving the American people. It is not serving the constituents that many departments have. Government is not business, right? We recognize that there are certain things that business would never do in terms of what government has to do because we serve all of our people. But there are certain practices that we can put in place that can help us deliver a better product, a better service to the American people. And finally, before I came out today, Senate Democrats continued their obstruction to the president's nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court, with the Judiciary Committee seeking a one-week postponement on its decision. That's why Senator Pat Leahy, the former Democratic chairman of the Senate Judiciary, said he is, quote, not inclined to filibuster, end quote, even if he ultimately may not vote to confirm the judge.
Does he regret tweeting to his followers that they should tune in to Judge Jeanine only to tune in and then have her call for House Speaker Paul Ryan to step down?
That's it, plain and simple.
But did he owe Speaker Ryan an apology then?
He and Speaker Ryan talked extensively over the weekend. I mean, I don't know if they talked today. I think they talked both Saturday and Sunday at length. But again, he's a fan of the show. He tweeted out support of it. That's it, plain and simple. I know what a lot of people say, Kristen. I just said it.
So does he owe the House Speaker an apology?
He doesn't. He's spoken for what? For supporting a show on Fox? No. Starting Friday afternoon through late yesterday, he's received a number of calls, as well as other members of the senior staff that had been working on health care, from members of both sides, saying that they would like to work together, offer up ideas, and had suggestions about how to come to resolution on this and get to a House vote on this. We learned a lot through this process. I think we're obviously looking at ways that we can improve not only how we handle healthcare, but other things, how we do everything. And I've mentioned it to some of you in the course of things. I think, you know, one of the traits of a successful organization is to always examine how you do things. But I think that there's been a lot of outreach from members of both sides with ideas, and the president's willing to listen to these individuals. And if they can come to resolution on a way forward, obviously we're willing to listen. I don't think we've seen the end of health care. As most people have noted, I think the Obama administration, from beginning to end, it ultimately took about 17 months, went through a series of fits and starts. I think that he's made very clear what his position is on Planned Parenthood, and obviously this was an opportunity to defund it. But I don't want to get ahead of our legislative strategy. We'll look at other opportunities, but this is definitely one that was a way to make that happen. Secretary Price was up here today. There's a lot of meetings that are already taking place internally with the team. There's a lot of options that are on the table in terms of, especially when it comes to what we called phase 1 and phase 2, trying to get some of that stuff out the door. And as we look back on we're talking about lessons learned. I think one of them is to try to get some of the phase 1, phase 2 meshed together. It's been 30 years. I think we have an economy that's evolved, especially in the technology area, that has made a lot of things change. And I think our tax code is outdated. And frankly, on the business side, we're uncompetitive. There's a reason that companies are leaving America to go to other places, because same reason sometimes companies move from state to state. Our corporate and regulatory system has become unattractive for a lot of companies that want to either manufacture here, grow here, or begin here, and or want to return jobs here. I think the president recognized that. Business leaders from around the country. It's not a partisan issue. I mean, you go out to the tech sector out in Silicon Valley in particular, there's a lot of these companies out there that admittedly weren't with the president during the election or continue not to be, and I think recognize that we are not as competitive as we can be when you consider the tax and regulatory climate of other countries around the world, and we need to be more competitive. Then I think you look at the individual side of the house, and I think especially when you talk to middle-income Americans, especially when in the context of health premiums going skyrocketing up, they recognize that they need some relief. And I know that Secretary Mnuchin has talked about August as a target date, and I think it depends. I mean, as you point out, these are big things. There's a lot of groups that are going to want a ton of input because of the very nature that it's been 30 years. But I think part of this is going to be dependent on whether, how the degree to which we can come to consensus on a lot of big issues. But I know that we have a goal, and it'll depend on a lot of these issues, both on the corporate side and on the individual side, how that process evolves. So to predict it, I know the Secretary would like to have it done. He'll play a huge role in this. Gary Cohn will play a big role in it. I think our legislative affairs team would play a role in it. There's a lot of folks on the team, Secretary Ross on the commerce side. There's a lot of individuals that he's assembled a world-class cabinet that has a lot of interest in helping to grow the economy, to attract jobs, create a more favorable tax climate here in the country, but then also provide tax relief for middle-class Americans. So, we're not there yet. As we construct this, both on the corporate side and then on the individual side, I think part of it is it's going to be an equation that isn't just driven by that, but more what's going to attract jobs, what's going to help us build, what's going to grow the economy. I think we're growing around, potentially growing around 2.6, and the president really would like to see that growth rate up in the high 3s, 4s, and 5s. And so there's a question about what part of tax reform, especially on the corporate side, will help us spur the economy and grow jobs. And I think that's an ongoing discussion. I think that's more of the driver of this, and then I think as it evolves, we'll have a score and we'll know more. I know that Chairman Nunes has confirmed that he was on White House grounds Tuesday, and frankly, any questions regarding who he met with or why he was here should be referred to him. All I know and what I'm willing to communicate is what has been made available through on-the-record comments that he has made. Again, I think there's a difference. He's doing a review, and it's not something that we're going to necessarily get in the middle of or get in the way of. It's part of it is to let him review and have conversations and look at things that he thinks are relevant.
Why is this leak okay, but other leaks are not?
It's not. I think there's a difference between a leak and someone pursuing a review of a situation that they have determined. That's not. There's a difference between a leak, someone leaking out to reporters for nefarious. To take classified information and share it with people who aren't cleared. Chairman Nunes is cleared. He is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. Someone who is cleared to share classified information with somebody else cleared is not a leak. Zeke.
So it appears there was some degree of cooperation in this process that the White House granted Chairman Nunes, making it not just an investigative action, but a cooperative one.
Right. So I would refer you to two things. Number one, we've asked both of these entities, both the House and the Senate Intelligence Committees, to undertake this review. So it is partially at our request that they're looking into this. Number two, based on the public comments that he made to Margaret's organization, he has said, from my understanding on the record, that he did not meet with White House staff. So again, I think you're trying to make something that he has himself, from what I've read, not actually been the case. So throughout the campaign and the transition, Jared served as the official primary point of contact with foreign governments and officials until we had State Department officials up once we assumed.
Request.
That's correct. And so given this role, he volunteered to speak with Chairman Burr's committee, but has not received any confirmation regarding a time for a meeting or anything. Based on the media frenzy that existed around this, he volunteered to make sure that he said, hey, we've made some contacts. I'd be glad to explain them. Let me know if you'd like to talk. Plain and simple. I'm not aware of where he got it from. I know in his public statements he's talked about having multiple sources. And so I don't know how he derived a conclusion that he did. And, you know, I think that at this point the goal would be to wait until the review that he is undertaking is complete. I can't say 100% that I know anything what he briefed him on. What I can tell you through his public comments is that he has said that he had multiple sources that he came to a conclusion on. So to the degree to which any of those sources weighed on the ultimate outcome of what he came to a decision on, I don't know, and that's something that, frankly, I don't even know that he discussed with the president. We saw these threats coming into Jewish community centers, and there was an immediate jump to criticize folks on the right and to denounce people on the right and ask them to condemn them. And it turns out that, in fact, it wasn't someone on the right, and it was the president from the get-go had said, I bet you it's not someone, and he was right. And yet, oh no, I understand that, and that's
saying he's a white supremacist.
I understand that, and I think in those cases, there's no question, black and white, we need to call out all instances of this. It's not just about making deals, it's knowing when to walk away from deals, and knowing when there's a bad deal that's the only solution. I think the president understood that while you can get a deal at the time, that sometimes a bad deal is worse than getting a deal. And thank you guys very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy the day.
You think we'll see it before midterm?